17 bodies are unloaded off a migrant ship in a Sicily port as hundreds are rescued. The Islamic State claims credit for a suicide bombing in northwestern Libya. And the Paradise Tattoo Convention is heaven for body art enthusiasts. Africa 54 starts right now.
Good evening and welcome. I'm Vincent McCory. This is Africa 54. Fraught with peril, the voyage from North Africa to Europe across the Mediterranean Sea has again claimed the lives of desperate migrants seeking a new beginning. The bodies of 17 migrants were delivered by the Italian Navy to the Sicilian port of Augusta on Sunday. They were recovered from one of the boats off the Libyan coast on Friday. Details of the nationalities of the victims and how they died have not yet been released. Italian media reports say indications are that they did not drown but were more likely trampled in the rush to secure places on the overcrowded boats. This past weekend saw some of the most intense Mediterranean migrant traffic of the year. At least 5,000 people were saved from fishing boats and rubber dinghies in 22 operations involving ships from nations including Italy, Ireland, Germany, Belgium and Britain. Migrants escaping war and poverty in Africa and the Middle East this year have been pouring into Italy, which is bearing the brunt of the Mediterranean rescue operations. Most migrants are departing from the coast of Libya. Calm seas are increasingly favoring departures as the warm weather settles in. Last month, nearly 800 migrants drowned off the coast of Libya in the Mediterranean's most deadly shipwreck in memory when their 22-meter-long fishing boat capsized and sank. That tragedy prompted the European Union to agree on a naval mission to target gangs smuggling migrants from Libya. However, a broader plan to deal with the influx is in doubt due to a dispute over the national quotas for housing asylum seekers. The EU planned to disperse 40,000 migrants from Italy and Greece to other countries met with resistance this week, with Britain saying it would not participate and some eastern countries calling for a voluntary scheme. The UN Refugee Agency estimates that some 35,500 migrants have arrived in Italy from the beginning of the year up to the first week of May, and that number has swelled considerably since. About 1,800 migrants are either dead or missing. Well, at least 30 people were killed in Nigeria over the weekend when suspected suicide bombers attacked a mosque and a market. There was no immediate claim for the blast, but authorities suspect the Islamist militant group Boko Haram. Saturday's attacks came one day after new Nigerian President Muhammadu Buhari promised during his inaugural address to eradicate what he called the mindless, godless militants of Boko Haram and rescue the hundreds of women and children being held captive. Mr. Buhari says Boko Haram is the most immediate threat faced by the country, and the military would intensify its offensive against the terrorist group. Now, for more insight into the security challenges facing President Buhari, I am joined by Mohammed Fraser Rahim, an African analyst and counter-violent extremism researcher. Mr. Rahim, welcome to Africa 54.
Thank you, absolutely, very much.
Now, everybody expected Mr. Buhari to anticipate Boko Haram to be perhaps the biggest challenge that faces his administration. What can he do differently?
The president right now has an opportunity to really set the stage internationally, domestically, and regionally to say to the world that Nigeria has a change. Nigeria will reclaim its leadership position in the world and combat in a very organized, meticulous, structured fashion against these extremist elements. And one of the most important and salient points to highlight is that this is not part of the Nigerian history, nor is it part of the Islamic rich tradition in Nigeria and the larger sub-region.
Now, we know Nigeria has the biggest military in the West African region. Is this just about going militarily and blasting these guys out of their hideouts, or can there be another dimension in the strategy?
The military approach is just one small part. It requires real, tangible community policing activities as well. Education is at the core of this. As you know, the government can only do but so much, but it requires faith-based leaders. It requires the Islamic community as well to look at this, to solve this issue internally and work collaboratively with international partners who can work to combat this extremism.
Some would say, well, this kind of strategy was employed by the former President Goodluck Jonathan. There were times, actually, they were even conducting talks with leaders of Boko Haram. They have said they've worked with community leaders, even religious groups. What is it that they missed that made Boko Haram become what it has become?
I think that the Jonathan administration was only able to carry on the tradition of what he inherited. He inherited a situation in which the previous president passed away, and he was trying to stabilize the country. So certainly he did his best. But Buhari, a seasoned military man, a seasoned policymaker who understands the concerns of Nigeria, and so they are in a key position to show and reclaim that Nigeria is in a position of being serious about business, and particularly as it relates to combating this extremist issue. That's not just, again, a Nigeria issue, but a larger sub-region, an international issue as well.
You do research in violent extremism. We're seeing a growth of this, beast called ISIS. And now Boko Haram and Al-Shabaab, all those are kind of conducting things that are very similar to each other. What would you say is feeding this kind of flame that seems to be almost consuming parts of the world?
I think there's an issue of education. Of course, we can look at other issues, illiteracy and unemployment, but education is at the core of it. If we look at ISIL and very much look at the larger issues that are at place, it's a lack of understanding from the very beginning of individuals who are learning at their religious educational centers as children. Yeah. So if we can combat, if ISIL has a Cub Scout group, then if we can come up with a narrative with young people that organically they take ownership with well-informed parents, well-informed religious leaders, well-informed communities at large, then we can have a generational change and address this soft power approach, which will have long-standing sustainable solutions.
And it's good you mentioned the soft power. How can it apply? For example, if you looked in the past, it used to be that terrorist groups would isolate some few people, a few boys, and try to kind of influence them into these extremist ideologies. But now you get a sense that this is becoming a kind of a mass recruitment, a brazen kind of recruitment in mosques and in towns and places across the globe. Why? Why is it happening this way this time?
Well, I think there's a larger, what's the alternative? So that places the burden intra-community issues, Muslim communities in particular, because right now we're dealing with a threat that Muslim communities have to take ownership. And how do you address this? You come up with real programmatics from the very beginning inside the mosque and come with critical thinking, come with educational initiatives, work empower women, work empower young people. And from that issue, then we can replicate this globally. But the issue also is not just a counter narrative, it's an alternative narrative. Reintroducing a whole new framework for these young people, for adults, and providing an alternative narrative in which they can see as the new normal, and in many respects, the new Muslim cool.
In few words, what can you say is the role of the international community, say a country like the U.S.?
Well, I think the U.S. and Western partners are doing all that they can. The role of funding and donor support is clearly there, but technical assistance can really do a major, can assist tremendously for these communities. So continue with that larger coalition building, but also getting at the root cause of working with different communities, as I mentioned to you, women and children. That's going to be very vital for the future.
Well, Mohammed, thank you very much
Absolutely.
For joining us today. Mohammed Fraser Rahim is an African expert and analyst and counter-violent extremism researcher. Now, turning to Burundi, a spokesman for President Pierre Nkurunziza says the government is considering a request from East African leaders to postpone this month's presidential election. The request to delay the vote by at least 6 weeks came following an emergency summit on Sunday. The chairman of the East African Cooperation Council of Ministers, Harrison Mokembe, says the situation in Burundi could destabilize the region.
We are urging the President of Burundi, Pierre Nkurunziza, that in 10 days we can find a solution, because if Burundi is unstable, the trickle-down effect on the whole of East Africa. We had a sitting yesterday with all the ministers of East African Cooperation and all foreign affairs ministers from East African countries in order to gather information from different sources to be able to come up with one report that will be presented to various heads of states in East Africa, who will have their sitting today with the chairman, Jakaya Kikwete, President of Tanzania, and make a decision.
Well, President Nkurunziza did not attend Sunday's meeting in Dar es Salaam. Deputy Presidential Spokesperson Gave Abayeho told VOA that Burundi's Election Commission will work with all parties and stakeholders and submit a proposal to the government. Critics of Mr. Nkurunziza say a third term would violate the limit set in the Constitution, but he says he is eligible to run again because Parliament, not voters, elected him to his first term in 2005. Well, now to the Middle East, where a suicide bombing attack in Libya killed 5 members of Fajr Libya, or Libya Dawn, the militia alliance that controls part of the politically fractured country. Islamic State insurgents claimed responsibility for Sunday's attack in the northwestern city of Misrata. VOA's Victoria Maki tells us more.
On the western fringe of its self-declared caliphate, the Islamic State struck when an explosives-laden car detonated at a security checkpoint Sunday near the Libyan city of Misrata. The militants have now declared war on the Libya Dawn militia alliance that controls Tripoli. The IS presence is viewed as an unwanted outside player in a country with many internal conflicts.
We will support all army, police, and revolutionary forces to fight and chase those apostates who have come to Libya claiming they are representing Islam. Islam disowns them.
The militant group has attacked the country multiple times since last year, reasserting its geographic reach from Iraq and Syria, where Islamic State members have reportedly destroyed an empty prison that once held political dissidents in the central town of Palmyra. The group continues to seize moments of political chaos to advance. Activists say Syrian military forces killed dozens of people, including civilians, in the northern city of Aleppo on Saturday. Syria analyst Jennifer Caffarella says Islamic State forces must be weakened through military action before political solutions can be viable.
My concern is actually not the ability to build political structures that will fill the vacuum, but actually to achieve military success on the ground. The prospects for defeating ISIS in Syria at this time are incredibly low.
Victoria Mackey, VOA News, Washington.
Well, a senior U.S. official says Qatar has agreed to temporarily extend travel and monitoring restrictions on 5 senior Taliban leaders released last year from the U.S. detention center at Guantanamo Bay, Cuba, in exchange for a captured American soldier. Last year, Qatar agreed to take the 5 as part of an agreement to free U.S. Army Sergeant Bo Bagdal, who was held by the Taliban in Afghanistan for 5 years. After walking away from his army post, the U.S. military has since charged Bagdal with desertion. Appearing on U.S. television Sunday, the director of the Central Intelligence Agency, John Brennan, said he wants to make sure the 5 are not allowed to return to the fight. The restrictions on the 5 Taliban leaders will remain in effect until a diplomatic solution to their fate is found. The year-long restrictions on the 5 imposed in May 2014 was set to expire on Monday. Now, the eldest son of U.S. Vice President Joe Biden has died. Bo Biden, the 46-year-old former Attorney General of the northeastern state of Delaware and Iraq War veteran, died Saturday after battling brain cancer for several years. Vice President Biden says the entire Biden family is saddened by beyond words. Bo Biden was married and the father of 2 children. President Barack Obama and First Lady Michelle Obama have extended their condolences to the Vice President and his family. Well, U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry returns home Monday after breaking his leg in a bicycle crash. Kerry was hospitalized in the Swiss city of Geneva in stable condition after the crash Sunday near Sionsier, France, about 40 kilometers from the Swiss border. Kerry will receive further treatment in Boston. A spokesman says that because the injury is near the site of his prior hip surgery, It will be treated by the same doctor who performed that surgery. He was in Switzerland for talks with the Iranian Foreign Minister Mohammad Javad Zarif on reaching a nuclear deal before the June 30th deadline. Kerry has been due to travel to Spain for talks and then on to Paris for a conference on fighting the Islamic State group. A spokesperson says he plans to participate in the conference remotely. Well, we want to know what you think about Africa 54 and the stories we covered. Join the conversation on Facebook. The address is Africa 54. Check out our headlines 24/7 on voaafrica.com. Coming up, a U.S. Department of Defense program provides support to stressed populations worldwide. Stay with us.
How do you see the world?
I see countries in turmoil.
I see our planet changing.
I see people at peace.
No matter how you see the world, you'll get an unbiased and uncensored view of it on Voice of America. On television, radio, online, and mobile. In more than 40 languages all day, every day. Millions of people tune us in.
How do I see the world? On Voice of America.
Welcome back. Our next story is part of a four-part series we're airing this week on a U.S. program that provides disaster relief and resources to first responders worldwide. VOA's Caroline Turner tells us more.
Whether it's a natural disaster, post-war humanitarian situation, or an impoverished nation-state, Star Tides is a U.S. Department of Defense research program that provides support to disrupted civilizations around the world. On exhibit in Washington, D.C. is infrastructure equipment that can be deployed for disaster relief efforts. Director David Becker gave VOA a tour.
Really, our effort to support a very large network of about 3,000 different organizations, or as we call them, nodes, which are people, organizations, universities, other sorts of people that are interested in trying to do what they can to help stressed populations. Stressed populations are people that are suffering from disasters, post-conflict, or even just very, very poor.
Star Tides focuses on 8 different infrastructures that are universally needed when there is an emergency situation. One of these is power.
We have one exhibitor here who has a very cheap, low-cost solar solution that's available for small villages. And then on the other hand, we also have other sorts of solutions which actually work over here, very much larger solar panels with batteries and a much more sophisticated sort of technology which would be used in perhaps post-disaster.
It is the mission of Star Tides to educate the civilian population and visitors from the disaster response community about the technology that is available.
The Department of Defense normally does not respond immediately to disasters, but they are, in fact, the responders of last resort, as you've actually seen recently with the response to Ebola. When the civilian organizations were starting to become overwhelmed, they had to look for more resources, and they went for the Department of Defense and that sort of thing.
When disaster happens, the Star Tides Expo provides visitors an opportunity to see technology in action and share ideas for humanitarian assistance. Links are being forged among the Department of Defense, the State Department, international organizations, NGOs, the business community, and academia.
Well, and joining us now is VOA's Caroline Turner to tell us more about the program. Welcome, Caroline. It's been some time. Good piece there, and we look forward to the other part of the series, the other stories part of the series. But in very few words, how can you describe this Star Tides program?
Well, they describe it as a research program, but I really would describe it as a network, just like you said, all the 3,000 different international organizations around the world, including academia, private sector, U.S. government.
Mm-hmm. Now, for someone out there, who probably hasn't followed so closely, they'll say, Why is this important to us? Why should I pay attention?
You never know when disaster will strike. It could be a natural disaster. It could be a post-war instability. It could be a food crisis. And community leaders need to know where to go to get help.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so this is very much about people who take the leadership in rescue operation or in dealing with disasters. They need to know what to do.
The civilian community needs to know how to deploy these people, and Star Tides is one network that would help them to do that if they only knew about it.
Yeah.
And Star Tides focuses on rebuilding infrastructures, and that's what I focus these stories on this week to address: power, shelter, water, solar.
And very quickly, how does somebody go to those expo or that particular expo?
Well, I focus my reports on the expo that happens every year. It's annually. It's in Washington. And that's where you can explore the technologies, speak with the experts, and even take classes. And anyone can go to the expo, except it's held every October. The registration is what is required to be able to enter the University of Defense campus. Mm-hmm. And you can do that online. It's at http://startides.net, net short for network.
Okay, thank you very much, Caroline. And we look forward to the rest of those. Now, Tuesday's part 2 of the Star Tides series explores temporary shelter. So be sure to join us. And it's time now for a short break. Still to come on Africa 54. If tattoos are your thing, or this event might be your idea of heaven. We'll be right back.
Called for a longer postponement of the elections in Burundi.
Welcome back to Africa 54. Here's what's trending. It's a taxi app with a twist. Now, a new ride-sharing app in the U.S. is hoping to take on Uber and Lyft by allowing users to bid on the cost of their fare. And the Los Angeles-based Opal also promises to let users pick the driver they want, and it's now set to expand its business. Now, fares are set up by a bidding process. The users input what they consider a fair fare. Drivers in the area bid until mutual agreement is reached between them and the passengers. Instead of taking cut-off fares from the drivers, Opal charges a monthly fee. Now, the Opal app is currently available for iPhones, while a web widget makes it possible to be used by all smartphones, desktops, and tablets. Well, next up, a cafe in Buenos Aires goes high-tech. Bit Coffee is ready to serve its tech-savvy customers by accepting the virtual currency Bitcoins as a form of payment. Even though the number of Bitcoin users in Argentina is small, the growing popularity of the virtual currency is growing among tech workers. The controversial Bitcoins allow users to complete financial transactions without any intermediary like a bank or the government or any regulatory body. And finally, with a body art trend hotter than ever, tattoo artists worldwide showcased their skills in Costa Rica this weekend at the 3-day Paradise Tattoo Convention. The event included live demonstrations, tattoo competitions, and live entertainment. Some tattoo fans took advantage of the gathering to add more ink to to their already tattooed bodies. Some guests at the convention sported on an eclectic mix of tattoos ranging from superheroes and ships to tribals and trees. And that is what is trending today. Well, it's an exciting weekend in track and field, and here with the latest news is Sunny Young with the sunny side of sports. Hello, Sunny.
Hello, Vincent, and sporty greetings once again to our Africa 54 viewers. Let's begin in the northwestern U.S. city of Eugene, Oregon, where some of the world's top athletes gathered for a big international meet. The Oregon mountains provided a scenic backdrop for the action in the women's 400 meters. American star Allyson Felix, a four-time Olympic champion, won in just over 50 seconds. Congratulations, Allyson. In the women's 100 meters, Shelly-Ann Fraser-Price of Jamaica and Muriel Ahore of Ivory Coast were each timed in 10.81 seconds, with the Jamaican awarded the victory. And that was Trinidadian sprinter Michelle Lee Ayi tumbling over the finish line with what looked like a hamstring injury. In the men's 100-meter dash, former world champion Tyson Gay of the USA won in 9.88 seconds. And then in the men's 200 meters, another American, Justin Gatlin, finished first in 19.68 seconds. In the men's 10,000 meters race, Somalia-born Mo Farah acknowledged the crowd at the start. And then Mo, a two-time Olympic champion for Britain, won the event in just under 26 minutes and 51 seconds. Finally, here's a sunny side of sports salute to 92-year-old cancer survivor Harriet Thompson. Harriet, accompanied by her 56-year-old son Brenny, became the oldest woman to finish a marathon, clocking a little more than 7 hours and 24 minutes at the Rock and Roll Marathon in San Diego, California. A resident of Charlotte, North Carolina, Harriet was also running for the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society. She helped raise more than $100,000 for the charity. Harriet has lost friends and family, including her husband of 67 years, to cancer. Keep running, Harriet. I'm VOA Sunny Young, and that's the sunny side of sports. Vincent?
Wow, I have a hard time just running for 30 minutes. Well, thanks a lot, Sunny. Be sure to watch Sunny Side of Sports every Monday and Friday right here on Africa 54. And that's our show for today. Be sure to watch Africa 54 on our website at voaafrica.com. For more news, tune in to VOA's evening radio show, Africa News Tonight, at 1800 UTC. And in the mornings today, Break Africa between 0300 and 0600 UTC, Monday through Friday. Thanks a lot for watching. From all of us here in Washington, have a good night.
Welcome to Voice of America's News Words, where we teach you about words in the news.
When you hear the word encouraging in a news story, what does it mean? In this monthly jobs report, was the news good or bad?
Encouraging.
175,000 jobs created is an encouraging sign of improvement in our labor market.
Encouraging means to give hope that something good will happen. In this case, more jobs will lead to a better economy.
And if people encourage you to do something, it means they support you and want you to succeed. Now, when you hear the word encouraging, your English will be good enough to know what this news word means.